All right, y'all, we're doing it. Today we're going to talk about how to find your undertone once and for all. For those of you who are new here, hello, I'm Kaki. I have an art degree. I have a cosmetology license. It's now defunct, but I was a hairstylist for a very long time. And also I have been here on YouTube doing makeup from a color theory standpoint for about 7 years. So I don't have any makeup on right now so that I can show you swatches on my face. I have a neutral undertone, and we are working under the most neutral light possible right now. It's all artificial light. I've tried to kind of control for everything, and I will do very minimal color correction so that you can see the trueness of everything to the best of my ability. I think I have somewhat of a unique point of view on this, and I hope you find it valuable. Let's go ahead and jump in. So where I like to start is actually at your pain points. And don't worry if this doesn't apply to you. It doesn't mean that the whole curriculum isn't going to apply to you, but there are so many people who I've talked to one-on-one who say, everything goes blank on me, okay? And like my mother said it her entire life, like it just, all of my friends, you know, it's like every time they think that they found the perfect nude lipstick or the perfect pink blush, it goes on them, right? For me, everything tries to turn hot freaking pink. For my mom, everything turns red. I've seen people who everything turns orange on them, things like that. And these are big signals as to your undertone, because it's a very loud and clear answer as to what you are not. Like I'm looking at my skin and I'm just like, well, I am not hot pink, okay? And so I have created this interactive color wheel, which I will link down below. It's a little bit rudimentary because I made it through Google Slides. I am not a programmer. I'm not a UI UX engineer. It is essentially an interactive color wheel where you can click into it and say everything goes blank on me, and it will tell you what you need more of in order to achieve a more neutral color, and then what your undertone is. So, and it's talking about color cosmetics, not specifically about foundations, but diagnosing your undertone helps with both. So the diagnostic standpoint, we're talking about color cosmetics. So like a nude, you know, you're trying to find that nude blush or that nude lipstick, that you get this exaggerated tone. You're just like, why does everything turn this color on me? That's what this interactive color wheel is for. And again, if that is not helpful for you, if that is not something that you have ever experienced as part of your makeup journey, then disregard. It is not vital to this process, but it can be a very quick shortcut to finding your undertone. The next thing that I think is really valuable that I don't hear a lot of people talk about is understanding the way that foundation is made and the colors that are used to mix foundation formulas, because that's gonna really help us understand and unpack why something would match you or why it wouldn't, right? Because yes, we're all trying to understand our skin, but then once you know, what do you do with it? Then you're just gonna go to the store and start swatching things on your face, and knowing your undertone is kind of only half the battle if you don't know what the undertone of the foundation is or why it's not working. So the good news is it's incredibly simple. There are only 4 colors that are used to mix all complexion products: black, white, red, and yellow. Follow me on this, okay? Because a lot of people are like, I have blue undertones, or I have olive green undertones. Where's the blue coming in? In my experience, the black pigment that's used in makeup is actually a deep, 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 deep blue. And so when it gets desaturated by adding white to it and becoming gray, it's a very cool gray and can behave a bit like blue. So when I was formulating lip glosses and things like that, I initially started by mixing blue with certain colors in order to cool them off or to make them more blue, obviously, because I was functioning off of an artist's visual color wheel. But the pigments that are used in cosmetics are not just these pure pigments in the sense that like a computer devised them. They're most of the time naturally occurring pigments. And so like, you know, nature didn't decide that it was going to be a hexadecimal code 000000, you know, it is just the blackest thing that we have to work with, and we have learned to work with that. And so when I was formulating those things, the lovely cosmetic chemist that I was working with, my friend Abigail, she basically helped me reformulate by replacing all the blues with black instead, because once it becomes desaturated and you use so little black, Even for deep skin tones, it's a relatively small proportion of actual black pigment because black pigment is extremely powerful. Like it's very strong in a formulation. In most cases, you're using so little that it behaves very much like a gray blue. And that is how we get foundations that have like a cooler undertone or a greener undertone, essentially. So why is this relevant? Oh, it's so relevant. This is how you understand why something doesn't match you, because it's like you're only here because something's not working, right? If you have your perfect foundation shade, you probably didn't click on this video, you know what I mean? You're not asking for help, but you have something that doesn't work, okay? And you're going to like swatch it on your skin and look at it and you're gonna be like, it turns pink, it turns yellow, it turns orange, or it turns gray, usually. So pink is red plus white. Yellow is yellow. Orange is red and yellow together, you know, peach, what have you. But peach is just such an opinion-based color that I'm just like, I don't touch peach, you know what I mean? Everybody has a different idea of what peach is, so we're just gonna call it orange. And then gray or ashy, which, you know, can often mean that there is too much white in something because the oxides that are used as white pigments in cosmetics tend to also be a little bit blue. Hence the white cast or the blue cast that you'll get from sunscreens sometimes, because it's basically a whole bunch of zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. And so, you know, it's all these clever ways of disguising that. But when it turns gray, either it has too much white in it or it has too much of that like blue pigment to it. And if it has that blue, it's black, pigment to it. And if you see that in contrast to your skin, you'll know that like your skin is warmer than whatever that product is. And so I think that that's half the battle, is finding out what your skin is not and figuring out what that looks like when you put the wrong makeup on. That's gonna help you narrow down to what you can wear, because I love the idea of everything being just assigned to us, right? It's like, you're green, you're warm, you're cool, you're blue, you're pink, you're whatever. But the fact is, there are a million different ways of talking about undertone from the standpoint of diagnostics and also from the standpoint of like how makeup companies label their stuff, like how they name their colors, how they name their foundations and everything. It is more important for you to be able to recognize what's not working and why, so that you can get to the better one, versus believing all the time that neutral is neutral, because I don't think that everybody has the same definition of those things sometimes. The last thing before we actually talk about how to find your undertone, I know, is understanding undertone versus overtone. So it's really easy. People really try to overcomplicate it, but your undertone never changes and your overtone does. Your overtone is like the melanated part of your skin, and so it's like, you know, I don't come by a lot of melanin very naturally. As you can tell, it's a little picky choosy as to where it wants to be on me when I'm in the sun, and some people just, you know, deepen in a very even way when they get in the sun because they naturally have more melanated skin. Or they're just not prone to pigmentation like some of us are so blessed to be. All that to say, you can find your undertone and still seasonally be a little bit annoyed and confused by matching your skin tone because your overtone might change so much in the sun. If you are someone who tans really easily, you're like, where did my olive undertone go? My skin is golden. It's like, yeah, because your overtone might be yellower than your undertone kind of thing. And think about this, right? Melanin is our skin's natural sun protection. It's doing its best to protect what's underneath it from the sun. And so that's why it kind of like darkens, right? And so that would naturally obscure your undertone. That's not to say that they have to be two different colors, but one can become a lot more influential visually if you spend more time in the sun. You're not gonna be able to see as much of your natural undertone. You'll be able to see it usually where the sun is not. So like you've got these natural shades right here in the form of your brow bone. So usually your under eyes are going to have less sun, you know, like right there. And then you'll notice it like, you know, underneath your nose or like on your cheeks right here, or especially obviously like on your neck or your chest or something, if those are less prone to melanation. But that's also why we we talk so much about the vein test. There are so many of these little hacks to find our undertone, but the one that I actually think is super legit is the vein test, because you're looking at your overtone and your undertone. So here are my veins. Oh, you'll notice I'm not doing this. Okay, don't do that, because that's gonna just thin the skin out over your veins. And what we wanna see is our skin over the veins. You want to see it in as much of its like pure color as possible, because that's what we're trying to diagnose, is the color of our skin. And the beauty of this is it's showing your skin over a contrasting color. It's like one of the only ways that we can do that. There's no other thing that's visible underneath our skin. And it's cool because this is sort of what I call the sweet meat. Like, this doesn't see the sun very much, and so you're going to see a lot more of like a natural understanding of your undertones, because it's definitely not as influenced by melanation. So you can see on me, right? Yeah, you're gonna have to kind of train your eyes a little bit, all right? But these are closer to the top, and they're a little bit more purple, right? You know, if I just like block out the rest of that, I think that those are a little bit more purple, meaning that like my overtone is a little bit pink, and that means that like I will get pink in the sun, or if I have irritation or something, it's gonna turn kind of a cool pink color, or even purpley, right? And then this is a little bit deeper underneath the skin, which I think is a much more accurate way to look at your undertone. And this is a little ever so slightly bit turquoise. Not all the way to green. If you have green veins right there, that is a telltale sign that you are an olive, and bless your heart, go join the olive undertone subreddit. It is a kind and welcoming place, and thank God, because the makeup world is not a very kind and welcoming place for olive undertones. So I am not olive undertoned, but I do have yellow undertones. Now, neutral doesn't mean that you're clear. It means that you are a mix of cool and warm, meaning that it could be green and pink, because those are opposites on the color wheel. It could be blue and orange. Those are opposites on the color wheel. It could be purple and yellow. Those are opposites on the color wheel. So any of those can combine to make neutral, which is why sometimes you'll see a neutral foundation match so many people who don't necessarily look good in the same colors, because their overtones and undertones are combining from like different orientations on the color wheel to find that neutral in the middle. So mine is coming from pink and yellow. So yeah, those aren't necessarily opposites. They're kind of on like a little bit of the warmer side. And so that's why I'm a little bit more towards like the golden side of neutral, essentially. Does that make sense? So let's say that on top of your veins right here, like these also looked like very purple and this looked very green. Then you've got your pink overtone and your green undertone, and that's gonna make you more of a like desaturated neutral, like almost to cool, almost, but you're going to still see a lot of those funny alchemical reactions sometimes with colors that you see on olive undertones, that olive undertone people find so frustrating. But that's also explaining why you can have a cool olive undertone and a warm olive undertone. It's because it's a combination of yellow and blue, and also your overtone, which can change. The jewelry test I find to be so subjective. So if you're unfamiliar, the jewelry test is like, oh, if you look good in silver, then you have cool undertones. And if you look good in gold, you have warm undertones. And if you can wear both, you're neutral. There's still no categorization for olive in that system. And also, like, yeah, I like the way that I look in gold. I don't love the way that I look in silver, but this is so subjective. Like, this is just taste-based. This is just opinion-based, you know? Especially because, like, if you were to actually block my, like, the warmth, right? Like, I have warm plugs. Like, I've leaned into that today. I like, you know, I wear warm kind of camel colored things a lot because I feel like the undertones like in my hair and stuff tend to be a little bit more golden too. But if I were to like block all those things out and only kind of focus on like where the coolness is in my face, like where you don't have really any melanation, like I don't have melanation on my lips, and so you're really seeing the purple that's right underneath the skin, like the pinky purple right underneath the skin. You're seeing a lot of the veins. Yeah, if you look at it that way, like you could easily say like, oh yeah, she could wear silver, you know, pretty comfortably, like if I really fully embrace it. And that's always what I'm trying to teach on my channel, is that it's not about being boxed in, it's about understanding why something isn't working and how to make it work. And it doesn't necessarily mean that like something is wrong for you. It might just mean that you have to work a little bit harder to like mimic what your features would look like if you were more cool undertoned, etc. So it's like making things tonal in order to match something and be able to wear something that you're excited about. Like if you wanted to wear like a silver eyeshadow or something, like, you know, to match your makeup to that, to make you feel more comfortable. So again, if you are already comfortable with what you're doing, don't let me tell you that you're doing something wrong, okay? You don't need to change. I'm not like, oh, you're all wrong and I'm right. This is just a matter of training your eye for things when they aren't working so that you can diagnose them yourself. A bunch of concealers. I pulled concealers because they're not going to disappear into my skin in most cases, because they are like a shade lighter than my skin in a lot of cases, not every case. And that's going to help you see not just the undertone value and whether they work or not, but also the contrast against my skin will help you see the difference in color more easily, right? So this is not like the easiest thing in the world, but if you're ever shade matching at the store, in the chat room, if you're ever shade matching at Sephora or Ulta or something and you have a big shade range in front of you, you really feel like you've got like, you know, all the colors at your disposal. If you've got like Armani, right? Or like, the Natasha Denona. The Natasha Denona concealers, the undertones are so literal. That kind of thing. I think that the Dior, honestly, the Backstage Face and Body is such a well-informed line in terms of undertone. And also the About Face, I have yet to see that in store, but I think that they do have bays for it. The About Face, I forget what it's called, but it's their foundation. Also, a phenomenal shade range that I feel like is pretty accurate in terms of undertone. But if you're looking at those things and you're like, I can't really tell whether this is working on me in my actual like level of depth, you know, like I'm looking at like for me, like a 1 neutral, a 1 warm, and a 1 cool, and they're all next to each other. I'm like, I can't really tell which one works better on me. Go a shade darker if you can. Or if you're really deep, go a shade lighter if you can, so that you can get the contrast and you can visually see like, oh, that's really trying to go orange on me, or that's really trying to go gray on me, kind of thing. And it will help to exaggerate those differences so that they're like more visually apparent. Don't be afraid to play in the displays, okay? That's what they're there for. Okay, so I have a few concealers here that I have more than 1 shade in because the company sent me 2. And that's very kind of them, because I can do things like this. So starting with the Tower 28, because I have the shade CC, which is my best matching shade, but with concealer you can kind of fudge it a little bit, and then BU. I want you to see, and of course I think these are in recycled packaging, and you can tell because it's not always the case, but a lot of times if it looks a little bit murky, it's like not the most clear packaging in the world, a lot of times that will be because it's recycled. Not totally sure, but it can obscure the color inside sometimes, so don't always believe this. But to me, it is evident, right, that this one right here looks more gray compared to this one. Do y'all see that? And if you need to, like, you know, screenshot something and up the contrast on your phone so that you can really see the undertones start to exaggerate, then that can be helpful too. Like, you know, anything at your disposal that can like make that more apparent. But BU is, they stand for neighborhoods in LA. That's why I'm saying learn to recognize what's not working and that you are the other thing, instead of like believing the shade names, because it's like, what? BU means nothing. I'm gonna swatch this on my jaw. This is BU. And you're like, that's not bad. It's not. But if it's doing anything right now, what's it doing? It's turning kind of gray, okay? And if that's not that apparent, let's do CC. Next to CC, it's very gray, okay? And CC is close, right? And like I said, none of these is going to disappear into my skin because they are concealers, and also we're applying these kind of thick swatches of them, but that one doesn't really look like it's doing anything. You know, it's not lighting up a certain color. If anything, it's just kind of peach, but visually it agrees with my skin pretty well. And so here is my advice. You see this, you're like, that's turning gray. Gray is blue in the cosmetics world, right? And that means that out of the primary colors that are being used to make your makeup, which are the primary colors on the color wheel, blue, red, and yellow. And so if that's turning blue on me, the one that's clearly not working is turning blue on me, what are the other two primary colors left? Yellow and red. That doesn't mean necessarily, oh, I have the combination of yellow and red, that's my undertone. That just means that's the next direction you need to go in. It needs to be more that and less this, okay? It could mean that you're neutral, but it means that you're more neutral than that. Whatever that is. And again, this is like a nameless line. And so it's like, who's to know, really? You just need to find your shade in it, right? So that just means like, don't go cooler, don't go bluer, right? Go towards something that has more yellow and more red to it, and probably more depth, because it's looking a little pale. So I have a couple of shades here from, oh boy, this will be interesting, from Kosas. Now, Kosas line leans warm. This is another example of why you shouldn't necessarily believe what they say that something is, but that is 01N. And I actually wear, not to confuse y'all even more, but I usually wear 1.5C because I feel like their range goes so warm that their cool is actually neutral. But that's their neutral. And you can see it's turning kind of a pale yellow, right? You can see this one's more orange, this one's more yellow. And so all their stuff has like a touch more yellow to it. That is not a bad match for me, but it's going to tell me that I could afford to go back more towards red, right? More towards red and blue if I wanted to. And then here is 0.7C. This is too light for me and too cool for me. And we are back in that territory of it is gonna turn kind of gray because again, it's too light, but also, ooh, it's turning purple, purpley pink. And so that tells me you need more yellow. It's just basically directing you towards your next iteration. It's like, okay, if I'm too warm for cool, let's go to neutral. If I am too warm for neutral, I'm warm. But sometimes you can stop right there at neutral and that works for you. And so that's how I kind of came to the understanding that, like, especially with a concealer, I can get away with wearing something, anything in this kind of peachy yellow area, and that things like this might work as brighteners, but would never work as a foundation because they're just too blue or too purple. I would say that that's like kind of, it's more pink, but still. And if you can't see this, I'm really sorry. Okay, I have two more here. This is the names on these. Real Flawless Weightless Perfecting Concealer from Laura Mercier. They sent these to me again. These are in frosted bottles, so it's really hard to see the undertones from the outside. But I have ON1 and OW1. This is the neutral. And it's turning a little bit pink on me. And this is the warm. They're both too light, like I said, but it kind of isn't doing anything, you know? It's kind of just settling in and being itself. And that tells me that this combination of yellow and red is kind of what my skin wants, because my skin's not trying to like alter it in any way. Should we do some more? Let's do some more. Okay, so remember how the Sarah Creel is too pink for me? Watch this. It's like basically baby pink when I put it on. And I have extra cones, I think, in my eyes. And so if you don't see that as like baby pink, then I apologize, but it is quite pink. And then I have like the Prism Libre. This is N95 from Givenchy. Another very, to my eye, accurate neutral. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for something that just doesn't react. Here I have the Dior in 0W. This is the Dior Backstage, right? No, is this? Yes? Yes. Whoa, she is so pale. Yellow. So their idea of warm is yellow. And it's so subjective because people think of cool as being pink, but pink is red. That's the other reason I'm not gonna sit here and tell you you're warm, cool, whatever. It's all relative. It's all relative. And so diagnosing your undertones is only part of the issue. You also have to be able to navigate when something isn't working and why. So that is too freaking light for me. And it's actually turning a little bit green, which is interesting. It's a little bit interesting. And then I actually have no idea how this is gonna go. This is the Vive, and I bought this. This is beautifully desaturated. This is in light 1. Quite light. But look at how desaturated it is. It's actually going a little bit gray. It's actually going a little bit gray-green. Look at that. And it works on me, it does, but if that were a foundation shade, there's absolutely no way. It's like sickly green on me. And that's how you know you're not olive. Whatever color it's turning, that's the color you're not, you know? And then I have T1 White Pearl from Uma, which I believe is like my best skin tone match. It like absolutely disappears into my skin. And that is an amazing neutral shade. So rule of thumb, if it reacts on your skin and you can see it very starkly contrasting against your skin tone, and you can always go up or down a level in terms of shades at the store in order to exaggerate that difference, then you know that that's what you're not. Like, don't buy that one. And you know which direction to go in, because you're gonna say, oh, it's going too blue. That means I need to go towards the other end of the color wheel. I need to go towards orange and all of its iterations. I want to empower y'all to be able to use the color wheel. I know that that's a little over some people's heads, not necessarily above people's heads, but like sometimes that just doesn't work with the way that your brain works, and that's totally fine. I just wanted to offer my way of thinking about it, and maybe it'll click for you, maybe it won't, but I think that there is so much power to be had in recognizing the difference between those colors and what was mixed to get there. This one right here has more black in it. This one right here has more black in it. This one is mostly white and yellow. This one has more red in it. This has more blue and more red in it because it's gonna be that kind of purpley pink. This one too. So understanding how paint is mixed and that you're only using 4 colors is going to help you see what there's too much of and what you need more of when you're finding your foundation shades. And then we have the general guideposts of neutral, warm, cool, and olive undertones when the companies are like naming the shades of their products, and it's not always the case. House Labs, I'm looking at you. Hopefully these swatches, if you're only shopping online, are accurate enough, and you know, your screen is accurate enough and whatever. There's a lot of transmission that has to happen between, like, you know, a photo of makeup and your eyeballs. Nonetheless, supposing that they have gotten it correct, you can begin to recognize whether their definition of neutral or their definition of warm is too warm or too cool or too whatever based on what you actually need. And then you'll be able to think outside the shade range, as it were, you know, and you might even be able to decide like they don't have a shade for me and not waste your money. So yeah, this is kind of advanced level. I think that this is probably the most like accurate, easy to understand thing, especially because you could take a picture of it and send it to somebody in natural light and they could like actually help you. It's not subjective. So anyway, I hope that this was helpful for y'all. If there are any other questions about this, I would love to answer them in the comments below for y'all or in another video. Look forward to some more color theory curriculum videos coming out soon. I am also going to be obviously continuing to review things, but I just wanted to get this out for y'all because I've gotten a lot of requests for it and I just felt inspired today. So if you found this helpful, please do give the video a thumbs up. Again, if you have any questions, leave those down below. If you're new here, subscribe while you're here. I do these kinds of videos pretty often, and actually I will put my color theory playlist up here for y'all to watch after this. I love y'all so much. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.